Great.
Wait, sorry, was it an uppercase or lowercase?
Both.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Contention 1 is gold price and the interpretation pushed by the U.S. advanced communities for non-party state application and using law for U.S. opposition during the access to non-party cover. Sensitive international community. Put one I see them now I would have direct like to work here. The other would be the aggression and war crimes after 16. Leaders commit when you fit into a training. Yo, cause correlation with eradication of 2016 eradication. I think one more understanding by between 3 and 6 percentage of the ICU supports exercise percentage of Trump is key by performance in the best possible. Once we want to roll policies is over commits and war crimes against ultimately very end in Portugal. 22 US violating full right side, choose right side of the unit terms. 30 seconds, code 17 or using. It will definitely be formal. D checks with page 22 and the viewer to take a computer and say, enacting the best version of 98 core jobs, which is more than breast groups and efficiency that efficacy that's taken and 3 vote. Teacher is arrested and to do something really properly One is that we have the deepest intuition for rhythm, that's what we have. Distinguishing feature of each response are the object of the also, it is possible to determine the direction of the how analysis is done with possible data points and synchronizing words into short one. If we calculate the probability of the something we don't know about the as no, we shouldn't want too much to do this. Great results from about anything different than the long that we do not know to be possible is a little actual published this force is critical actions act all maths in 17. If any fraction that's decision has the decisions sad for the fails to will recognize the nature of capital and change course.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's the, I guess just like it's human rights violations, and then what would be the other one? Civil and ethnic conflicts.
Civil and ethnic conflicts, human rights violations, and we have a card, the Jerry Stevens evidence, which explains that just joining parties to the ICC in itself reduces debts, which obviously is good.
Okay. Wait. What? How does joining the ICC just directly reduce debts?
Well, yeah, that's the rest of the case. First is it makes conflict that is unnecessary a lot less feasible, which means that leaders are less incentivized to go into unnecessary conflict. Next is that it also
okay, we're in an era with Trump, who like has like I guess what is like the context of like Trump in this?
I mean, sure, like Trump is a businessman. He understands that there's like consequences to the actions that he does. If it is too costly to go into conflict, he won't do it because he knows that there will be ICC backlash. Next is we read a card that says
like it doesn't seem like he would let himself be bound to like international law.
Okay, the way the ICC works is that states that are partners to the ICC are forced to arrest Trump if he steps foot on their land and he's prosecuted.
Like I understand
Trump
that.
would not be able to leave the United States.
But he can still command interventions. For example, Putin and then Putin is like still like a party to the ICC.
No, he's not. He left the ICC a couple weeks ago.
Okay,
which is why that's not the point.
The point is that when he was a part of the ICC, it wasn't like it didn't constrain him, and he left eventually because it just was not a check on his power.
Wait, and now the ICC prosecuted him for when he was part of the ICC, and now he can't leave Russia. Or else he'll get arrested.
Wait,
I mean,
okay, so he can't leave Russia. Like wonderful, but like he could still do everything that he does.
And all of Trump's advisors are constrained by the fact that they can't leave either. The argument is that Trump is now incentivized to not engage in further conflict because he doesn't want to be prosecuted.
Okay, so the only threat that the ICC can mount against Trump is that he can't leave the United States.
That and also that becomes a global pariah. Obviously, he cares about international law.
No, he does not.
In some ways, I mean, you can read a card that he does not care at all about any of the alliances or any of the relationships he has with any other country. But I just that's just wrong. Like Trump does not want to be a global pariah. If Trump steps foot, or any of his advisors step foot out of the U.S. after they're prosecuted, they're immediately arrested and taken. So that seems pretty bad.
Okay, that's fine. I guess ICC, what is the process? How does it prosecute people? And who like prosecutes?
Sure, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, prosecutes people that have committed war crimes, people who have committed crimes against humanity.
Okay, once people are prosecuted, I guess who goes out and makes sure that these rulings are enforced?
Well, first of all, it's mutually enforced by all the states and members of the ICC, which means that they are obligated to, if any leader that's prosecuted or person that is prosecuted that steps foot on their land, they're obligated to take them. Next is that are also just like mechanisms, I guess, in the ICC that like in The Hague, etc., that can hold and sustain these people.
Yeah, sure. Cool. I'll send that out. The orders can be 5 offenses. Citizens. The Office of Law Energy Constitution certain norms or provisions of the United States Code of the evidence of the United States of the United States statute that the criminal court, the United States Deputy Judicial Register reports policy as also that regarding increased protection of waste policies and for the office and the role of abuse, internal uncertainty which states that requires simply across the blue 20 and publication of lawyers and nature or accepted integrations that law that preceded the fixing of for enacted as adopted formally enacted by codified by law by Congress and not voted on those added to the amendments of the continuing so the statute and encouraged by the public interest for the text enacted in New York State commandments not parts of the Congress as institution and for the rules and limits that rationality of the very legislative institution at the stronger Democratic system delegations to legislative bureaucracy members use a shield edge to make something separate ours and remove these parts of politics serve as number resolution at the democratic ways of partisanship from us by Congress needed or rights of prosecuted preserves process as Congress it's hard to get law passed out for the past station over the 20 I voted out of all to them more collaborative and highlighted ability to make these and knowledge and turning more WD exposing to panic global risk global response for politics and perfect as I like to do that exercise with rest actually to people weapons and next off the United States documents work out to use all last not I'm going to work out to the impunity interpretation of Moses Spirit by doing substituting all U.S. citizens and military officials prosecution by the ICC every member of the NDCA should work over at least together to remove Donald J. Trump and GPS from public office if this is not failed to United States and so then Senate should unanimously impeach Donald J. Trump the committee of robustness with the ICC political and unique convention CWC DWC and every treaty that regulates war crimes in the exception of the United States Commission on the Law of the Sea agrees on the robust support after the ICC say Amendment 21 robust support compliance with every other treaty that regulates unprohibited war crimes without ratifying anything more actually United States Convention Law of the ICC. And it goes more restricted in the plan to something the politics is pass legislation or require those doesn't stick to the U.S. revenue that other than this links to the Constitution also does not ratify the one statute so it doesn't link to Israel represents next also lexicon rather than Article 3 Amendment ACL 18. ICC violated the Constitution subject to the prosecution and for under Article 3 not founded by the Bill of Rights amendments that waited here in President of 20 years before judgment practice of body under assumption of innocence amendment right to know what it is instructing witnesses and trials and secret Constitution guarantees that criminal cannot be appealed so I enter ICC appeal to ICC now preserve right to during Article 26 Amendment. This will retaliate against profiling any indemnity and advertising for government Congress non constitutional decision to use authority to any force Congress as any area of the against the power of body staff and structure. Successful in the exam when the court of instruction on Congress correctly issued communication sanctions. Congress is watching and responds to the future. This is follow locally, which comes to the class of rule of law extension as 21. Government law governing crossing the judiciary when politicians accepted judges are is undermined. Any problems of warming up already the healthcare pollution of fishing as mass extinction refugees and decent security are to be restored necessary to defend judiciary but the experience they well paid at outside law the next time the United States actually expected and affirmed Israel ICC arrests of warrants are on the breakdown to play the Israel international community and encourage escalation of Israel Hamas conflict at Rome 24. The ICC indictment would not achieve that justice. The ICC warrants unite American society coming at Netanyahu, although Israel's one and Netanyahu died the public advantage to rally around the win against the ICC were reinforced the opposites among Israelis and world gone out to the to try to play the international community so it hurts Israel's right away and the ICC still hard to just understand why people surrounding ICC, but what actually will make you upwards of both the ICC movement and like to stabilize the way from like to embark rising through congressional leaders and because of the and time when it's more up to where the ICC which the prosecutor would when like he wants to separate symbolic justice that's going to be a deep backward for reaching case of the ICC at the US officials is more like a criticizing rejecting the decision of the ICC actually at 2021. I call the ICC is much outrageous. We always stand by it's real the White House and the Jackson call for arrest US I believe that the ICC is not a jurisdiction being national security advisor defending Israel for winning its number. Response to the ICC is common terms of the wider outrage among Republicans. The ICC is threatening secretary of Israeli isolation, most frequently integrating against Israel. Its ICC may result in war articles and actions that are illegitimate, developing harmful the United States non-party making less than withdrawal jurisdiction identification to Hamas increase pressure make Israel feel isolated into Jerusalem. Israel is feeling an isolated public conflict ICC takes center stage. Feeling by each new utterance of applications perceived by Israel as a U.S. abandonment, one identity and a reverse long-standing American policy against Bellator for Israel by requiring U.S. to send out to ICC arrest warrants. Anyone who's a long-standing American policy that is what the U.S. ever made a non-party from the ICC has no jurisdiction to send a word relation non-party state threat. Also, not the government legal mandates that you're affected by reciprocal state leaders of party the Rome Statute, the Yemen case of become relevant in Washington, which will be for its marriage with Israel. Any suspension that U.S. effective way causes parents to strike extinction of Column 17 for its ability into the real history unit. Israel usually start by being alone and existing U.S. effective way inside Israel and against the Israeli confirmation and to change Israel means like that was the propaganda to the Israeli against fraud, so just miss was to maintain such a relationship. Here's lead Israel to adopt a launch on monster extinction, Cal 2112. Here's a alleged Israel to adopt a launch on warning, a high trigger exit escalation at Atlantic domination, source of use in the war second level with EWS opposed that challenges false warning for the accidental nuclear war. And that fails alone, Randall 22. Summers go down to materialize in this case. I'm going to assume that we have taken some kind of solution. I think that's your decision and makers had all the info to force the bargaining change before it's on the way to the escape prioritizing the Christian Russia. Pushing has been closer to Africa, what the state celebrates for the West End disaster nuclear wars, the location high impact any then with non-zero probability or kind of theories inevitable given long enough time to avoid breakdown of deterrency, how to operate within a single set of addressing the theory. I have to see for every see every contingency as a nuclear war is part of this, but either a blood eventually runs out of eventual outcome is going to be catastrophic. And the threat of catastrophic HR doesn't affect national security content, it doesn't escalate first strike and framing. Exchange always under any sort of moral to keep your future debt number 15. Reaching access to races and threat their 20 countries the future ability to well-being of 0.201% of the weight not possible that live this matter and possible of your intelligence is considered with promoting good applies strong reasons to reduce excessive rating and they're 90% sure they have strong reasons for more than scientific excessive intuition entering. People are not filled with another intuition and not war crimes in a vacuum. We should prioritize maximum life including future peoples when our probability is predictable, so link chain is significantly causal, so you can will be a link chain that are for regenerating MP. Portal 17, nuclear de-escalation that suggests vulnerability to humans and company under shared for open communities of the life. Endemic to nuclear establishment and with a nuclear war being and no one is sending or to possibly necessity to think about how humanity was helping dominant humanity in such an endemic was anything with it who was right to nuclear war that's with the shipping and nuclear dispersed from the city east vertically or with different countries, different countries, no decision grid like especially if you just any calculate risk, but 92% risk over probability and estimated 1/16. Psychology indicates that problem risks are neglected and research without concerned about the recent events as something where was not experienced, that experience and immunity events solve nothing, doing that how growth respite did nothing interest, solve war reduce material balance culture, and also 17 21. I use data sensitive tools measuring our research on PC has positive effect on violence attack on it is effective all find the region for things like PC conventions that experience of fear conflicts and fears in the long run and compensate during actually finding enforcement is the best follow on as I hear at 20. You have an opportunity to ICC money constraints possibly independent from the UNSC reverses for not and sure cooperation for association politics. The ICC is more colonial and not custom to be ratified both 23. I don't stand to talk ICC inception as people to not run a solution about the 24 so 2021 possibility prior to the US and focus on only on the top end this month for both complaints and partiality of centers being either global to be critical HR, each applies to Ukraine and Gaza.
I think I have a genealogy if you want to start. Or we can.
Yeah, no, if you can start across it.
Okay, cool. I guess the OLRC kind of thing, what is the OLRC and what power do they have?
Yeah, the OLRC inserts an open source provision.
Wait, I get that they do that in the town, what is their power in the status quo?
What do you mean, what is their power? The
What
power
do
is
they
that
do,
get-
what do they do in the status quo?
Yeah, they get domestic legislators to follow on.
They get domestic legislators, can you read a line in the card that says that they convince domestic legislators to follow on?
The statute encountered by the public appears different to the text enacted. Further down, it says that it has a commitment to non-bipartisanship and respects the rules and limits of Congress as an institution. And then it says that
Why does all of that mean that they get Congress to follow onto their laws?
it says that what is it? Like it's down here, but it says that it can insert text into.
Okay, I'm
That
also reading
word,
this card and it
where
looks
is
like they
it
just
used?
define what laws mean. I don't understand how they have power to create laws.
No, it says that currently lawyers perceive it as indistinguishable from enacted titles, i.e. it is law essentially. So essentially when you're going out and you're saying that we do these various policies, it is indistinguishable whether it is in the OLRC or if it is in a domestic branch that is sent by Congress. So once it undergoes that provision.
Okay, it says, I'm reading the card, the OLRC can insert a new definition into a title, I guess, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah, sure. So the OLRC is essentially an alternate law. It has it altered the US code to propose the app as the best interpretation. And then after that, it summarizes it, but it's not the law itself.
okay, sure. The Israel is sad, I guess, where have you read a card that says that Israel is scared because the US joins the ICC and then just preemptively nukes everyone? Like, can you just read that more?
We said that it's perceived as abandonment. We said that.
Wait, okay, yes, I get they're abandoned. Where is the,
Yeah.
where's, I feel like there's a gap between the abandonment and the Israel preemptively nukes everyone.
Israel is uniquely terrified of being alone in the international arena. As a result, suspicion of the United States backing away may incite Israel to behave more aggressively. And
Okay, but what does that look like? Like, I mean, Israel arguably behaving aggressively now, what does Israel behaving aggressively look like?
Trump has cut cut aid to Gaza. He's made it so that the assurances are increasing. He's done a lot of stuff that is made it so that he decreases from the international arena, but has made it so that he funds more towards Israel. He just sent a funding bill last month.
Okay,
So-
sure. Okay, where in the whole evidence, I guess, does it say that Israel just ignores mutually assured destruction, ignores everything, and just decides to cause mayhem?
Israel does not really care about nuclear destruction. It says
Where have you read that line?
Oh.
Where have you justified that?
That's he said the threat of Israel turning itself into a nuclear armed desperado, striking the Gulf cannot be dismissed. That is a very clear line that is saying that Israel is a nuclear desperado. This card is really good and very clear that Israel, once it is abandoned, and it will be abandoned under plan, is going to become a nuclear pariah that has no more security guarantees. And when it goes into that point, it will obviously reject that because it has no more guarantees that the US is going to back on any of its deals.
You read the Randall card?
Yes. I sent the. Were you 4 or 5?
I don't think.
Okay. I was going off 4. Okay. Thanks.
You're fine. The order is the order.
Wait, sorry. So advantage framework.
Yeah, the framework, or yeah, the advantage of the framework
And then,
and the order. Should be.
what regulations?
Yeah.
That
Like, we don't get these shoes.
I know already.
Ratifying the ICC reduces the overall war crimes and deaths generally dropped, which means you know for certain that it has 100% probability now first it's all nothing is wrong. That being arrested is not that being arrested is not matter because the immediate interpretation precludes them from being fully from the ICC having full power. 1 and 2, they are constrained by a lot of actions and it's inconceivable to start new wars. 1 2 is also wrong. Interventions do not solve war. There are no warrants here that prove this. Plus, there are no warrants here that prove this. And obviously, we've cross-fight all of the cards that say that they increase the war crimes. Trump will constraint is also wrong because they dropped the evidence that says that the ICC overrides any sort of pardon by Trump. The ICC is one who won't prosecute. Is only the it's only specific to the US before it joined the ICC, which is different because the interpretation was to extend to more power. Now frame. Hummer is wrong. First, they dropped Wood's Institute, which is more specific. It talks about why the literal leaders of their own movement say that we should take institutions with a grain of salt because it crowds out any sort of more probable risk. The intuition stuff is wrong. No, people are not only people's situations are not only directed at people who are not killed. I.e., why we do things like ride planes and drive cars every year because we care about probability more. Probability is also wrong because will prove the linkages are wrong, which also is on the portal evidence. Now the decision for black stuff is also wrong. There's no words for specific words that say that you can multiply anything by infinity. I mean, which means that we are not able to actually do anything. Underestimated is wrong and disproves the intuition stuff that they said before because it clearly is an argument situation for extension for paradise. OLG. 1 is that impact on insolvency and impact nowhere does it say that becoming OLG false extinction. 2 is the impact on utility makes a no source of all time every time why the ICC the solve extinction and for the top of all means the host gets past the OLG devices. OLG the has a very type of new effective so there's a new topic education has been transformed for class quality and control the OLG cannot implement laws it can only edit this laws which means it cannot implement the ICC not acknowledge or edits the OLG which means him do nothing interbelow and prove to those OLG drops here are grammar and laws which can do with the place they plan and one NC evidence proves this interbelow and the advanced calculator 1 is for those choose from calculator 3 to control ICC variable process into the core business settings which are the interbelow and the complementary and the complementary catalyzes the best action point. I see constitution and constitution basically that's when you see evidence plus the interpretation is the same thing and it poses several layers of interpretation this they take 3 crimes to prove efficacy. That's when you see Apple and we're using interpretation as long as the evidence is subject to IC constitution which is linked to solve the games not moving interpretation unless we are English which is IC wants to correct the US until they ratify until the fiat is literally pitched. Fiat that the Senate changes their intuitions and vote votes out Trump plus Trump is dictator claims his powers from war. Now the Constitution sets wrong the one that links Constitution plus into possible Trump. Okay, bro, section with something for regular use of sovereigns and the minorities constitutional amendments or man 24 friendship with each other wars and constitutional and extra treats some right in 24 is lower than each constitutional and Germany field of legal means to strike down. And now Israel 1 is that Israel is looking at terrorist technology times 25 years is something getting gas in the course, to lapse storm smoking with hours of stroke, and to during gas gets used for with enforcement is supposed to be stop prosecuting is real and check the destabilize of the and non-control war based on potential amendment and the not be a trade-off. It's all seal 24 binding to be no version for this is not really institution and the NDCA has absolutely no word in the North Dakota, it's just some countries don't care. Sorry, that was.
Wait, sorry, any of these stuff no more? That's all.
Yeah. Just as some countries.
Um. I just realized I read no enforcement mechanism on these, but it's not really discussed. That wasn't in the month though.
Oh.
Only voter utilities.
Yeah.
Wait, Israel, what did you read? You said that. You read terrorists. What did you read after that?
Terrorists
Yeah, okay.
abandoning the US joining because of leverage, gut check, and third does not be trade off. Cut at.
Sorry, where did you guys get trade off at? Where did you get the trade off for that?
I think.
Yeah, okay, we'll go through that. Cool. Order is case. Sorry, not case.
Okay.
I know.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. No, I did that before. Okay, order is gonna be, the Israel Day. And then after that, the advantage counterplan. And then, the ORC. Constitution. Remember this.
Are there any cards?
No. Okay. Is anyone else?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. The plan causes the Israel to think that it is immediately embedded. That causes them to trigger a nuclear first strike because it now thinks that it is a pride thing with no more allies on its side. It will launch 200 nuclear weapons and makes it so that nuclear Armageddon will happen immediately. That makes it so that all of their impact escalate because the US will no longer have any more bars to do things like to stop things like war crimes, and Putin and China will also commit more war crimes because they will no longer have international institutions that they're now in literal conflict and hard power replaces soft power in these types of areas, which means that there's definitely a huge turn space argument here. It also increases conflict because they have dropped that conflict. It's the only reason why their framework thinks that war atrocities is bad, but we'll get to that later. But we're gonna do the line by line right now. Nuclear war is really bad, but and they say their first answer is tariffs. First of all, this part is terrible. It doesn't say what Israel actually thinks. It just says that tariffs will harm Israel, but not that Israel thinks that it is even close to a ban. The second one is that uniqueness. Our cards that said as of this year or as of November of last year, Israel thinks that their relationship is really strong, which means that a 17% tariff definitely would not impact them. Also, tariffs are on every country, not just Israel. They're on other countries a lot worse than Israel, which means that it doesn't think that it's abandoned, but it thinks that this is just U.S. policy, which means that it is universal. It also doesn't decrease their HR because they have done other things like making it so that they're Palestine and making it so that they have cut aid to things like Palestine, and the U.S. has literally sent funding to go to Israel the other month, which means that this doesn't matter because there are other ways that we are assuring them right now, which are way stronger than a 17% tariff, which is a lot less than other countries. They say that abandonment is worse. First of all, no more. Second of all, North definitely don't solve our impact, and also Israel decreases North anyways, which means that Israel was able to check theirs, but they cannot check for our impact with the nuclear war breaks up everything. Also, North don't. They say that joint increases leverage, but no, it is not perceived as increasing leverage. They have drawn that Israel is begging the U.S. not to join because they think that U.S. lawyers specifically are going to be able to mount threats against Israel. Like, think about it, they're not only pro-Israelis in the United States, they're pro-Palestinians as well, which means that they're going to mount threats against Israel because they think that is the right thing to do, which means that they'll definitely feel abandoned because Israel is literally asking the U.S. so that they cannot join it right now. Also, they have dropped that it increases the physical amount of arrest warrants for other countries, not just the United States, which means that it is net worse because it means that any solvency that the app would have is more leverage, that it is less leverage that Israel has over the United States because arrest warrants are given to the international organizations instead of the United States, which means that they would feel abandoned because the United States has essentially betrayed them even if they're not doing it themselves. They think that gun check solves. No, first of all, they do. McConnell is really good. It says that Israel is a surprise state, and quote, the threat of Israel turning into a nuclear armed desperado striking at the will of states in the Gulf cannot be dismissed, which means that this is definitely a huge impact, which they are underestimating in process. So it's kind of embarrassing because I pointed out several lines that Israel is definitely willing to do this and willing to launch 200 nuclear weapons. They say that no trade off. First of all, no war to the car. They cut it. I abandoned, which literally says that they'll read you what they write. Biden should continue to offer Israel support. Blah blah blah. This is not the whole image. ICC remains multilateral. The whole individual accountable. That is it. Which means that this part literally should not be rejected. Say, cut it there. Cut it there. Advantage counterplan. Utopians got not a voter. People got utopian things anyways, and utopian things are a reason to actually no. We're gonna go through the counterplan. Utopian data is not a voter. There are things that are not utopian, and there's no bar for what counts as a utopian mandate. People see out things like signing statements, which are not signing statements, that people can state counterplan things like the treaties topic, which is that there is definitely no bar for utopianism in debate, and it's not a reason to drop the debater anyways. Actually, yeah, we're gonna move on. OLRC kicked into his condo, everything condo's bad. Confine, reject that normal means is through like an amendment or whatever, so gets rid of that framework. They have dropped that nuclear war increases empathy, which means that all of their cards about how we're dehumanizing and how we're not doing anything is not specific to nuclear war, which says that nuclear war means so that we all are impartial actors and not one above another, which means that we all view each other as equals, which means that nuclear war is a way that we breed empathy with other people, which means that not only is that a way that not only does that get rid of their humanity offense, but also, yeah, they say grain of salt, and no, it's not a grain of salt because it is a large impact, not a tiny impact with a small probability, because it is a large impact with a large probability, because you have dropped a lot of things on the Israel data. This means that all of your framework of it assumes that the probability of Israel striking is low. It is not. It is very high. They say, and also a group grain of salt in anything can be infinite, which means gridlock. No, not true. It is not an infinite. In fact, it is 500 trillion people, which means that it is finite, but it is still very large. It means that there's no gridlock, but there's still a huge impact for us. They say that not only killed and it drives people, that it drives people can because of probability. The probability does not matter because nuclear war it subsumes this, but yeah, they say that compound probabilities. They say that they have proved the Nietzsche is wrong. You haven't. They say that the deepest intuition. They have dropped the social psychology and the analysis of several meta studies prove that we underscore extinction and we underestimate it because people are way too optimistic about our odds in the future. This is a meta study on the analysis of different individuals and experiments. It should be approved over there. One author making his opinion statement on the case page. Ratification. Intervention, yeah, they say that intervention, they say that they thought that Trump is not going to bind themselves to the ICC. But the only reason why they gave the process is that Trump cannot leave the country. Trump literally does not care if he leaves the country or not because he is isolationist and he does not really care because he can execute things like war powers and AUMF, things like that from domestic lands. He does not need to physically move anywhere, which is the only reason why they gave for a check. But also the ICC is definitely focused on other countries too, which means that is a turn to their advantage about why ratification would decrease war crimes because they focus on Africa and the Taliban. Every prosecution since 2001 has focused on Africa and the Taliban, but they ignored things like Ukraine crisis in Israel because they are scared of doing that. The U.S. voting simply does not change that because this is the structure of the ICC that the U.S. will not be able to change. First of all, because the U.S. is first of all because of Trump, and second of all because these are literal standards, and the way the ICC prosecutes does not give it to the hands of the U.S. but instead given to the hands of the head of the ICC, which means that is definitely corrupt and turn states because it means that is more racialized and gonna be a worse impact anyways.
Okay. Order is going to be the case, the solvency stuff, then the framing, then it's
Good.
ratification of the ICC removes the immediate interpretation since the international standard which occurs in Russian public also ensures the use of prosecuted which avoids domestic violations of human rights which kills millions. Drops which means you know for certain that the probability here is at 100. Now I'll do the line by line. The Trump won't care stuff. Dropped all of our preempts. First is Trump obviously cares. Drop that Trump does care about his reputation to be able to advance policy agendas and maintain domestic leadership. He needs to steer away if he only looking to steer away from international prosecution because he would become a pariah. Second is that Trump obviously would care because he would not be able to step foot out of the U.S. which means that it's just not costly to impose more war crimes or to be able to be able to kill more people as part of the ICC because him or any of his leaders could be prosecuted soon to step down. It's just not incentivized to continue to reach them. Next, the ICC prosecution stuff and being imperialist is wrong. The only two examples that they said that the ICC was too scared to prosecute are Ukraine and Israel, but the ICC had both prosecuted both of them in the last few years, which disproves that Putin is being prosecuted for his crimes in Ukraine, and obviously Israel is being prosecuted too because that's linked to this, which also just disproves this. Now the framing. The standard is prevention of trust crimes. This is a question of what we prioritize under the regional have that probably come first. We'll extend the woods and cheese for evidence. All of the warrants are dropped. Extinction risk is possible for underestimating something that you don't know to be possible. It's never happened. This can only happen once. Therefore, their analysis is illegitimate to start with, which means to make you incredibly skeptical of their arguments for more probable impacts. Even Boston hedges layers of uncertainty when arguing extinction outweighs. You can see that we should take extinction with a grain of salt because you know that there are select biases in your unreliability small sample sizes. You know it's bad when the figurehead of the framer just even believe in it now. I'll extend, they just said that take this red chart does not matter because it's too large. But no, the board that we made is that even if extinction is large, it does not matter because there are more specific, more probable links. So we have the deeper intuition to prevent that. The more deeper intuition to prevent. They said that extinction is underestimated. That proves our argument. It proves that extinction is not our deepest intuition, and that preventing extinction is not, and that we should prioritize the more probable impacts of war crimes. But it also does not say that extinction is probable in the card because it does not prove any other offense. So it will also extend to the both normal 92 times probability, so we should never act at all. If we times any numbers, there's no way to decide what action to take. They just said that it's a big number, but it does not matter because we can supersede any of our link defects on the said in order to solve and literally impossible far away impact. They said that it generates empathy, but we should further look to true strategies for us. The question about why more probabilistic impacts is bad for and turns empathy as well. We took awards that I don't know how they framed it. It doesn't make sense. Now we're going for unique stuff for this ad. Their uniqueness is from November, which just means this ad is literally at zero. I'll do the line by line here. First, is they said that theirs is from November, which means it's recent. This is before Trump, which means that obviously it's different because Trump is now in August and January, and it's opposed tariffs, which is caused alarm and anger. Netanyahu went to convince Trump to reverse the tariffs and failed a couple of days ago, which means you know that Netanyahu was freaked out.
Okay.
Give me.
Okay, great job, both of you. This was a great debate. And I've heard you both a lot, so I thought you both did especially well today. I ultimately would ask, I think, that the thumper reduces the probability of dissat enough such that the absolute impacts outweigh. This is heavily filtered by the framing debate, which I want to applaud both of you. It was really in-depth, lots of clash. We're saying all the right warrants. You know, like it started early in the debate, so there was a lot of back and forth, like fantastic friendly debating. So let's start there. I think the way to think about this is almost like framework in a K debate, where you need to have an interpretation and offense for that interpretation. So the way I sort of interpret this is like the app's interpretation is that we should basically artificially inflate probability in our risk calculus. And the negative's interpretation is sort of implicitly, it should be probability times magnitude divided by time frame, like, I don't know. Sometimes they put that on the board, but basically probability times magnitude. So the offense for that I'm getting, the neg is saying this thing about empathy, and you know, viewing each other as equals and coming to solutions. And so that's the benefit of talking about impacts in a way that, you know, prioritizes extinction, prioritizes low probability things, blah, blah, blah. Now, the offense I'm getting from the app is like this paralysis decision-making becomes impossible thing. And I think, and then the thing about intuition, which I didn't really get, I think you need to explain a little bit better, like why we should go with intuitions. Like the 1AR line about cars and planes is great, and I think we should bring that up again and be like, cars and planes are dangerous, but like we need to go on with our life. Like there is some risk Israel's gonna go batshit, but like we need to get on with our life, you know? Same thing. The calculations have to cut off at some point, right? We can't just keep calculating. Okay, Austin, that's you, right? Okay, fantastic. I've never seen this argument before. The answer to the decision paralysis, that's at some point more calculating becomes unusual. That's a great argument. I had never thought of that. Just like, yeah, part of the calculation would be, should I be doing this right now? And if the answer would be no, then we wouldn't do it. Okay, now the app would say that seems pretty infinitely regressive. Like that's still sort of shoehorning in the exact same probability times magnitude thing. So I mean, it's a debate in philosophy. Like this is a real debate, but Austin, yeah, definitely said that. Great argument. So I thought, yeah, the app's offense for sort of inflating probability ended up being a little bit more clear, and I think they're right about this sort of decision calculus thing. Okay, the advantage, I think the defense about Trump, I mean, I think it's hard to say, you know, this would just obviously never happen, so it's like hard to think about what Trump would do. But I think that's not what their only impact is, and they kind of, you know, extend this thing about not domestic crimes, but like global war crimes, and you know, throwing the ICC, sending a signal that allows them to prosecute atrocity generally with more effectively. And then I thought the other NR piece of defense was sort of new, and I didn't really understand the implication about, yeah, like the ICC normally prosecutes, you know, has, oh yeah, I don't think they've ignored Ukraine and Israel. They did for a long time, and then they finally said something. So not really impacted out. Okay, the DISAD, yeah, I wish the 2AR got here was like, you know, 10 more seconds, but it was fine. I think this number is more recent. Your card being from before the election is not okay, unfortunately, just because like the relationship obviously depends on who the president is. So our this card needs to be, maybe it's from late November. It honestly might be. I think it's from like November 20. But yeah, a newer meeting card. And also the NDCA should have a meeting card that's not just about the ICC, but about the US-Israel relationship generally. Because you're referencing all this stuff, like yes, we did increase funding for them. Yes, they have a special military edge where like we give them all of our best weapons before anyone else gets them. All of that's still true. So you should read this card about just like how remarkably strong our alliance with them is in general. Because yeah, the ICC doesn't need to be your unique argument, it just needs to be language. Okay, couple more things. Oh yeah, sorry, back to the uniqueness stuff, some things with the NR. So you made the argument it's not what Israel thinks. Unfortunately, I do think the card says it triggered anger and disbelief, or triggered anger and something. So I don't think it like says Netanyahu's name, but like it is somewhat about their reaction. You in the NR should frame it much more as like it's a question of the personal trust between Netanyahu and Trump, which is extremely high. Yeah, I think the argument about tariffs applying to everyone, so like they're not specifically offended, is okay. It's not like great art, and their card does say the tariffs against Israel are actually higher than other countries. The thing that the NR needs to say on this number is that it's not in the context of military support. Economic, tariffs are insulated from the hard power, intelligence sharing and military interconnectedness that we have with Israel, which they are confident in now. But the ICC messes up. And I think you can make, I guess what I was sort of starting to say, you don't want the uniqueness to be so strong that joining the ICC doesn't trigger it, right? But I think the way you can make this both work is that there's an arrest warrant out for Netanyahu right now. So, yeah, he would be really, really personally threatened, and he cares a lot about like him personally standing in power if that ever happened. Let me just see if there's anything else I want. Yeah, the NR, great debating. Just going like a little bit deeper on some of this stuff and thinking about which warrants are really, the best. Take out the thing you're saying the most. Like for example, we lost the launch on warning argument. I heard you read that Israel switches to launch on warning. That's like immediate dissent, right? And even in 1MC Cross-Ex, she asks us about the impact, and you don't mention that, and then we forget to extend it. So you need to like do the really good like uniqueness debating that you're doing for each part of the dissent, even when the 1AR doesn't answer every part, because the parts that the 1AR doesn't answer are the parts that you win on, right? So we can't spend the whole NR just answering the 1AR, or else we're forgetting the parts that make us win. 1AR, good time allocation. On the advantage counterclaim, you should say no object fiat instead of no utopian fiat. Not committing war crimes is an object. It's not a policy, it's an outcome. It's like it's a state of being. You can't fiat like a reality, you have to it would have to be worded as US should pass a binding internal policy that bans war crimes as defined by the ICC. Okay, any questions? I can put like some other little things in the box, but I've just done a lot of talking, I feel like.
I guess like for like the framing page, I guess I made a mistake because I tried to like present like future generations as like my offense.
Well, I thought then you said that it's not infinite, it's only like 300 trillion because we're not talking about future gens.
Well, like it's like 500 trillion in future generations, which is like if we're weighing like suffering as like the.
But are they not in or not? I guess I didn't understand from your speech that future generations weren't infinite. I thought. And you need to then be talking about like the Bostrom words of the suffering of all those people multiplied by even a small probability. So a lot.
Gotcha. Do you think like the framing page would have helped if I put in like a more illustrative like argument there, like you can't put that in the section? Or do you think like it didn't?
Irreversible is a huge warrant that we're missing. And honestly, I think the empathy thing is like not really important. Like this debate isn't actually about like the offense for our framing, because if their offense was like discussions of war crimes and structural violence, like break down hegemonic thinking and make us more ethical policymakers or whatever, then we need offense about empathy, because this is almost now turning into like a K argument. But their offense is just about our ability to make decisions and weigh impacts. So, I would get rid of that and spend more time on like irreversibility, moral uncertainty. Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I guess like the launch and warning stuff. Did you think like that was like a different impact? Or like
no, it just makes your impact a lot more probable, honestly, because I mean the card's super old, and you should also need to point out that their main impact card that they're going for is from 2017, before October 8th. So like anyway, October 7th. Wow, that was weird. There's a that is so bad. There's a documentary called October 8th, which is like incredibly awful. So that's what I was thinking of. But anyway.
I think it's
okay. Great job, guys.
I just started.
Yeah.
Do you think like what should have been taken out of the frame page and to art? Because I felt to decide to write like to get to the exam.
I think you're honestly extending your advantage for a little bit too long. I would try to just cleanly extend an impact that doesn't have to do with the trunk, maybe, because I think you have one in the OAR. So that gets out of having to answer sort of what the NR says. And you can be a little more efficient there. And then on the grading page, get rid of the intuition thing unless we're gonna like fully
Yeah.
explain it. And focus way more on the grid block. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't have time to answer your question. I try my best to be as agnostic on the content of our units as possible.
Okay.
That's all I can ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Would you in here? You have to get here. I'll get the next one. Do you want? He's still gonna be. He's not gonna be easy. No, it's fine. Anything.